Good evening, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. If you don't mind, please stand as you're able. We'll do the invocation and followed by the pledge to the flag. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek the blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Some general announcements. We are operating under the rules of procedure adopted on September 24th, 2013. The use of cell phones is restricted during meetings. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to the clerk and should include a copy for the clerk for inclusion in the official record. Just to review our schedule for August, we'll have a work session, a special session next Tuesday at 3 p.m., a work session beginning at 3:30 p.m. Because we want to be able to wrap things up before National Night Out, which starts at 5:30 at the Fairgrounds Park. On Tuesday, August 11th, we will have no meeting. Tuesday, August 18th, we'll have a work session at 4 o'clock. And on Tuesday, the 25th, we'll have our regular session at 7 p.m. And thank you very much. At this time, I want to formally introduce our new Fire Chief, Steve Lohr. So, Chief, if you don't mind coming up. Chief, thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
I just want everybody to know I officially delivered the oath shortly after he took employment, so we're not going to do that here again tonight because he's already been on the job almost a month now, right? Yeah, so we're very proud to have him here, and I'm going to let him introduce his family and say a few words.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I appreciate the warm welcome I've received here in the last month from not only you, but the council members and all the department heads. If I could take a minute and introduce my family, my wife of 31 years, Becky, and my daughter, Christine, my son, Brad, and of course, fellow firefighters in the audience who've joined us here this evening. So very proud to have this opportunity and to serve the community I grew up in. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to serve, and also thank the members of the Hagerstown Fire Department for being here and supporting you. Thank you so much. At this time, we're going to have citizen comments. Just want to remind folks, citizen comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual. Meetings are televised and recorded. Your comments will be on air and on tape and on YouTube. So without any further ado, I would like to invite Patrick Prudhomme. Patrick, if you don't mind just stating for the record your name and address.
Patrick Prudhomme of 136 North Mulberry.
Thank you.
I've called the city code enforcement people and talked to Josh Green, and I asked about the sidewalks in our area, why they're so weed choked. And so I went up to into your code and I looked it up, and I've got what is it here? 216.9 that says it shall be the duty and obligation of the homeowners of the property abutting a sidewalk or alley or street or other public right-of-way to maintain all vegetation within or adjacent to these right-of-ways. So I asked Mr. Green about that, and he told me that in their department, they shelve that from April until August. So we have 12 weeks during the peak growing season where the weeds just run amok in our sidewalks. I think maybe he might want to do that for snow removal too. We could shelve it until August and July. Literally can't believe that that's going on. Now, I know he's really busy because he told me that he's doing 2 other jobs. I assume that the other 6 zoning inspectors are also doing these 2 other jobs he's talking about, which leads me to believe that we don't have 6 zoning inspectors, we have 2 full-time zoning inspectors. I've asked through Freedom of Information Act to find out what exactly they were hired to do, what their duties are, also what their pay scale is. Later, I'm going to put one in to find out exactly how many cases they've heard over the last 3 years and what the disposition of them was. I think it's interesting that I hear all the excuses about why these things can't get done and money being a big one, but it says at the bottom here that it's a $200 fine for not keeping your sidewalk weeded. Our neighborhood looks really terrible. We look like a slum. And I'm wondering why I'm paying for zoning inspectors and not getting anything done. That's all I have to say tonight. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, I appreciate you providing some information that we can follow up on with staff. And I will say that this is not an issue that is isolated to your neighborhood. It's in every neighborhood. And I've been talking.
Yes, shame on us for that.
And ultimately, like you pointed out in the code, it is each property owner's responsibility to keep up and maintain their property and up to code. And I can't imagine we don't enforce the code for a period of time throughout the year. So,
Well, that's what Mr. Josh Green tells me.
thank you, and I appreciate, like I said, we will be following up with staff, so thank
Okay.
you.
I'll be waiting to hear. Thank you so much.
You bet. And I also want to tell everybody, we will have staff coming in on a future work session to give us an update on some of those questions you asked about what the new code enforcement staff have been doing and kind of get an update on general code enforcement operations. So that will be forthcoming as well. The next person to sign up is Brian, is it Green?
My name's Brian Ginty.
Ginty. My apologies.
I don't get it right all the time.
With a name like Geispert's, I can sympathize.
I live at 136 North Mulberry. The reason I'm here is, in my past, I've always been involved in the local government. Tonight I'm here to sit, listen, learn, but I will be getting involved. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your involvement. The next person to sign up to speak is Nikki Frierson. Nikki.
I wanted to say good evening to the council. I am appearing not just for myself, but my aunt, who is a state senator, Joanne Benson. She was also hoping to be here to speak. My topic, my concern this evening is a property directly next to where my husband and myself and our 2 children live. The address of the duplex is 661 and 663 Pennsylvania Avenue. This property has been abandoned for an extended amount of time. Not only is it a blight to the community, it is also very dangerous. If you go by there, please, I encourage you to just drive by there and just take a look at it. It's just a mountain of paperwork that has been plastered, I guess, from the city, putting up notices. I have followed up. I did not go online. I was encouraged to do that, but I went directly and made calls to follow up. We've seen people come out and talk and tell us different things, that they're working on this. The owner, I even found out the owner lives in Oxon Hill, Maryland. I've been told that this person is elderly. But the concern here, like I said, I can't even let my children go out in the backyard because I'm just concerned for their safety. There's a tree on the property that looks like it could tip over at any moment. And I guess the concern is that we feel like, and I'm speaking for the people who live in the community, we feel neglected because we've called. We haven't done a petition, but there's been multiple calls, there's been multiple emails to the city, and we've yet to receive a response other than they're working on it. There's a lot of paperwork involved, and we want action. Honestly, I believe that the property should be condemned. It's not fit for living. I've watched on a number of occasions where children, as young as my son, who is 8, go into this property. I'm wondering if it's gonna take one of those kids getting hurt or worse for there's something to be finally done. So what I'm asking of the council, the mayor tonight, is we need action on this. I think we've just become a bit fed up with, we're working on it. There's a process, there's paperwork. Meantime, if my aunt were to try to put her property on the market, no one's going to buy that. It brings down the property value. But yet we are held to a standard as far as a code and what's acceptable for renting and things of that nature. But this property is allowed to just run wild. The bushes, there's just trees and it really is a blight. And I just really need some attention to be brought to this. And I'm hoping that my appearance here tonight, for myself, for my family, I'm born and raised in Hagerstown, and I came back here with my family for a reason, and I'm hoping that you all will pay this some attention finally, because to this point, we feel like we've just been getting a lot of talk, but very little action.
Was the code that you had gone through?
I'm sorry?
Had you just gone through the code department?
Yes.
Okay, and that's, yeah. If we could, Ms. Administrator, could we just see how far back the complaints were when they started to come in, please?
This
Yeah.
is the White House with the plywood over it?
I'm sorry?
White House with the
It's
plywood?
yellow. It's yellow. It's got plywood.
Right.
It looks like actually, not just plywood, but it looked like someone took the top of a desk and just put it up at a window. The bushes, you can't even walk down the sidewalk to get to my house because some of the weeds are so overgrown.
Right.
The backyard, a mess. They come and cut it maybe once a month. It's just, it's really terrible. And I just know that my aunt was put through the ringer to bring her duplex up to code
Yep.
so that she could have rent. But this place, in the meantime, it's the complete opposite. It's not fit to live in.
Well,
And
thank you for bringing it to our attention. We'll certainly follow up, and I think it brings to light a larger challenge with these kinds of properties in all of our neighborhoods.
Sure.
And the key is not only having the regulatory process and authority to get those kinds of things actionable sooner, because of course we have to go through the process and make
Right.
sure everything's documented and
Right.
give all the amounts of time, for people to take action, but
And I've been afraid to go up there and look
And
to
I-
see, because like I said, there's papers all over, so I don't know how long this house has been
sounds
in
like
the
it's
system.
been in the
But
process
It's been
for
a
a
long
while,
time.
sure.
No one has lived in that house.
And then the other key is
For a very
making
long
sure we have
time.
access to funds to actually take abatement action on these properties for mostly what you identified are absentee landlords
Right.
who are incapable or otherwise negligent in maintaining their
Right.
properties. And like you said, it is unfair
Right,
to
because
people who
we,
are
as
being
the
held to
people who
those
live by it,
standards.
we're the ones who suffer.
Right.
No one else, in this room has to, you know what I mean? I can't even walk down the street to take my kids to the park without having to literally go in the street because the weeds are,
I think I can speak for all of my colleagues when we say we hear you and we take those concerns seriously.
and I
certainly
appreciate that.
follow up.
And I'm looking forward to some action on this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nikki. Mr. James Devine. Haven't heard from you in a while, sir. Welcome back.
I hope you can hear me tonight. What has the city done or lack of done to help the homeless in the city? Where do they have to stay besides the streets? I see them out there, reports of them staying in the woods. Where else can they stay? I even don't like the cold weather shelter because they push the people out, I think, 7 o'clock in the morning, regardless of what the weather is. I think the city has to do more in order to provide some place, somewhere, somehow, for the homeless in the community. You see them on the streets, you see them in the library. They don't have a place to go. They don't have, and actually I think it would be beneficial because you could provide help to them, or training, or job searches, or whatever, to help them to get off the streets. And I don't think the city's doing enough to help them, at the time. The second issue I would like to bring up is the speed cameras. I went to the county commissioners and asked them who the point person was on the speed cameras. They sent me to the Board of Education, and they sent me back to the county commissioners. But they don't have a point person. The Board of Education doesn't have a point person for the speed cameras. They're
the city's speed
It's with
cameras.
the city, but each individual city or district has its own individual person. Why isn't there a point person that's in charge of the whole thing for the county? either with the commissioners, and I talked to recently elected delegate, and he was talking about, they were just cash machines. My question to him was, you don't think they're there to protect the children? You go down, you look at where they are, and they aren't down there on the Downsville Pike behind South High. There's none back there to protect the children. There's a flood of children. There's none at the Votech. North High is lacking, there's a lacking of the speed cameras in the area to help
They're at
protect
North
the
High,
children.
Jimmy.
Pardon me?
They're at North High and South High. Speed cameras are at North High.
Well, yeah, but if you look at where they're at, are they going one way? Even the one at Bester, it only catches vehicles going one way. It doesn't catch them, the one that was setting out in Bester, they removed. So who is in charge here with the council on the speed cameras?
That'd be our chief of police. He's the one that
He's
administers
the
the
point
program.
person.
Correct.
Okay, and then why wouldn't the school board or the county commissioners have a point person, for those? speed
My
cameras?
understanding is the county does not have any speed cameras.
Well, that's.
So they are only within the city boundaries
If
in
it's on
school
the-
zones.
Am I mistaken, but is it
Smithsburg.
Washington County schools?
No. They're in school zones because that's the way the law was created. They can be in school zones and.
Could you speak to the legislators this legislative period, try to get something corrected in it where there's a point person for the whole county? Instead of each individual city or town having its own person judging where they're at, there should be a major point person that evaluates them and where they're at and where they need to be at. And there's not a point person nowhere. You're saying that the chief of police, but
He administers our program here.
I think I did talk to him. He told me to come talk to you.
Here you are.
Huh?
Here you are.
And here I am.
But Jimmy, the cameras are still located in the city of Hagerstown. The commissioners would have the ability to be able to put out in the county as well as if the school board wanted. But we only govern what is in the city of
Well,
Hagerstown.
that's what I'm talking about, speaking to the legislators. and
Well,
trying
I'm
to
just
get
saying-
one point person for the whole county, not just.
To do
whether
what?
it's with the
Because
county.
I'm not understanding you. To do what? To put more cameras?
Well, to evaluate where they might be needed or aren't there. Like I said, you go out down Downsville Pike, down South High, there is none back there. And there's a flood of children that come out there every day at school time, a flood of them. But there's no camera back there. What's there to protect the children from people running up and down that road?
State Highway has made a determination that they are not interested in seeing a speed camera on that street, that it is not warranted at this time. Our contractor and our designated point person, the chief of police, has inquired about that specific location on a number of occasions. The current state law, which I think has been changed at least 5 times in its existence, does require 2 things. It requires a designated administrator, which is our chief of police for our jurisdiction, and it requires a designated enforcement officer, which is an officer within the city of Hagerstown's police department. It does not specify that each county gets 1 person. Each jurisdiction which governs uniform police departments gets to determine who those 2 individuals are.
But that's the point I'm trying to make, because it's so varied between each town or each location.
It's not varied. There's only 1 jurisdiction in Washington County that has speed cameras, and that's the city of Hagerstown.
That's it.
Well, no.
Smithsburg.
Yeah, Smithsburg.
Pittsburgh now?
Yes, Smithsburg has them, but then
They
why
have-
doesn't Williamsport have them?
Because Williamsport has made a decision
Not to have 'em.
not to install them.
That's, so they don't want to protect the children coming out of the schools, is that what
You'd
you're
have to go to
saying?
their mayor and
You'll
council
have to
meeting and
ask
ask
the
them.
mayor and council
Well,
of Williamsport.
That's why there should be 1 point person, for the county.
Well, I
for the
think
whole-
it's a matter of local government, so it's, on this,
Right.
in this case, it's
That's
the
it.
smallest, most local level of government gets to make that decision. So the county,
And
the
Candidly,
county,
Jimmy, we don't want the county making the decision for the city of Hagerstown.
Well-
That's the answer.
Okay,
And if
okay,
Williamsport
how
doesn't
about the
want,
Board of Education making
That's-
the decision for the schools?
we don't want, in the city of Hagerstown is gonna make those decisions. The fact that the Board of Education or the county that's their
Yeah, but the
province.
Board of
You need-
Education, they're just like this.
Well, you need to go talk to them.
Well, then-
We don't have anything to do with them,
They'll
Jimmy.
send me back to you.
We don't have anything to do with the Board of
We
Education.
look forward to it.
Jimmy, anything else? I think your 5 minutes is about up.
Okay, well, just a comment on the development in the city of Hagerstown. You know, there's too many vacant buildings in the city, down in the city district, that the owners are just, like you say, vacant landlords, and they need to be developed either residential or commercial that keep the business in Hagerstown.
We're definitely working on it.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
Jimmy, just a minute. I need to address something here. When you brought up about the homeless, I want to task you, okay, to find out when you're seeing the homeless that are around, and you're everywhere, I want you to find out where they actually came from. Our community is being overwhelmed by homeless people. Not only homeless, but other people, okay, that are coming. Now, wait a minute, Jimmy, let me finish. Because you feel it's our responsibility to find a place for them to go. And in most cases, they want to be where they're at, okay, until winter comes. But my problem, Jimmy, is that I've got a major problem in the fact that everybody, it seems as though, has advertised Hagerstown is the place to go to. Jimmy, we can't put up with much more because it's ruining our community. And I don't mind helping anyone, but you know what? There even comes a time, even with homeless, even those who have mental problems can also give back. I see them doing nothing other than squatting, doing whatever they feel that they need to do. And I need now you to go to those people and say, where did you come from? Why didn't you stay there? What is it that we have to offer?
Well,
Okay?
I do see a lot of them.
I know, Jimmy, I know, because
Salvation
you
Army,
know.
Which is in distress too for the people.
Well, Salvation Army usually houses women, other than when they're feeding.
You don't choose to be homeless. It's a matter of circumstance. It's a matter of
Jimmy,
not
but the
having-
problem that I have,
A lot of people do have some type of
they do, they do. But Jimmy, how are they finding us?
Why isn't there some place that they can go that would provide them help?
I don't know, I think you really need to go to the federal government, because I think they're the ones that need to take care of a lot of this. I think that's the issue now.
You know, like I say, where is there in Hagerstown right now where the homeless can go and stay?
Well, thank you. I think that'll be about it for citizen comments. Is there anyone who didn't sign up who would like to speak? Janet. State your name and
My name is
address
Janet
for the record.
Bartels.
Welcome back.
Has been for a number of years and will remain so. I live South Mulberry Street, the 100 block. And I was here hearing all these comments. I'm here to respond to, I don't know if you've gotten your packets for your last meeting, the meeting before this, last week I believe it was, a couple of things that had come across my email right as I was seeing about the items that were going to be discussed at the mayor and council work session. And so I brought them down here, and Danny made copies and put them in here, and I wanted to kind of explain it. It goes along with all that is going on here tonight and why I stopped down here. I put in a notice from the Advocacy for Children that Gordon and I have belonged to for years, reporting that there are more children in need right now than there were during the Great Recession. And that certainly speaks to my neighborhood. The neighborhoods in Hagerstown, mine, is since the housing bubble burst, has gotten more distressed, the children poorer, the response, it's difficult. And we need to be working as a total picture here, county, schools, and the city for our children. There is no other way. They're all our children. And we have actually the poorest people paying the most, because I pay city taxes, and as well as my neighbors, county, and school board. And every time the school board asks us to chip in an extra 1.5 million or an extra few $100,000 here, it is, you're having the most distressed people pay the greatest amount of money. And that really needs to change. We need to get a better relationship with the county and the city so that we're just paying those taxes and not paying, we'll pay our city taxes, but paying above for county and school services. That was why I wanted to point out how distressed the children, it's over 80% poverty rate in my neighborhood. And I still work with children and their families in gardening in my neighborhood. So I'm very familiar with the issues there. And so that kind of dovetails with also when I see the money being spent on the arts trail and I just last week attended a Main Street meeting where we're talking about getting traffic on Main Street and the businesses, bringing businesses. I'm on the Clean, Safe, and Green Committee. And we're talking about needing things to make Main Street more vibrant and attractive. And then I see that we're spending all this money on this trail that isn't even going to go by the art galleries, the businesses, the Main Street. It's not dovetailing with, and the money, certainly the committee that we're working on needs money. And so if that could kind of be combined, it could be used, that art trail somehow with the Main Street. And there's lots of art. There's art galleries. There's, just having a real art trail where you go by all the arts, the shops that feature arts, the art galleries, the library. We're asked to put extra money into that mural in the back of the library that is unviewable, first of all, from Main Street on the trail, and unviewable when the library is closed because it's gated. So those concerns, I just have those concerns, how better, and I've walked the trail, and I'm not going to walk it again. I wouldn't go that way to go to City Park. And I'm afraid that we're going to put all that into it, and people aren't going to. They just, so I had to speak out again. I'm sorry I've missed it, but I've been very active here. I've been in my neighborhood and been active in it for over 10 years now, and it makes me very sad because it's done nothing but my neighborhood is very distressed. And I've spent time talking to Rodney about recycling, garbage, all those issues. My neighbors and I work together, but we've got to have, money has to go into we're the main city neighborhood, and we're getting more and more distressed, and money has to go in to the neighborhoods in order for this downtown and the arts community to be vibrant here. So thank you for your patience, but to sin by silence makes cowards of men, and I put and women, said Abraham Lincoln, and I think he's still very relevant today. Thank you.
Thanks, Janet. You'd like to speak again, sir?
Just less than a minute. Still Brian Ginty. On East Street, which is right next to where I live, there's a house that was in foreclosure, and a retaining wall, stone wall, collapsed into the sidewalk. It's my understanding that the city had that repaired, and if so, the fellow did a wonderful job. It looks terrific. Credit where credit's due. There are a lot of things that I'd like to see done, but This wall was repaired in less than 5 weeks. I assume that you all had something to do with that. Thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
East Avenue.
Last call for citizen comments. I will turn it over to the council for their comments. I'll start here on my left with Ms. Nye.
Okay, I don't know if this has been taken care of or not, but when I was at the police department, I was told about the, again, weeds that are on Pennsylvania Avenue, directly across from North High. It was a development that was supposed to be developed, but was not. And I quite honestly have not been out there. If somebody could please check that. I've not checked back with code to see if that has been taken care of. They were at least 4 feet tall, and they were actually blocking the view of the cameras, the speed cameras. And again, Patrick, I'm glad that you brought up the issue with the grass in the sidewalks and in the streets, because also what the citizens do not realize, or the people who do have the rental properties, is that when you do mow, you're supposed to clean up after you mow, and it's not supposed to be left on the sidewalks or in the streets. But not to my satisfaction, when I called and I said, you know, there are people that are mowing and they still continue to do this, and what can we do about it? Well, unless we have proof that the people have actually mowed, there really isn't anything that we can do. There is a $200 fine, but we have to prove that in fact the people who live there are the ones who mowed, or if they have hired somebody. So unless we have it on camera, we don't have a shot. So therefore, there goes the $200 right down the tubes. Something has got to be better than this. This is absolutely ridiculous, and we need to do our own housekeeping, because we have contractual people who do mowing for the city, and we find that it is also left in the streets. Now, we have street sweepers. If we know that we're going to do this, then the street sweeper should be there cleaning up afterwards if we cannot do it. But I think that we have got to get on top of, again, putting a clean city forward. And the excuse of, oh, gee, we don't know who's mowing, that's crap as far as I'm concerned. If we have to send out, if we have to hand out to people that this is how this is supposed to be because this is what is in our ordinances, then we've got to do it. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Munson.
I would like to say that I agree very much with everything that Penny said. We, as a city, have a responsibility for taking care of the weeds, and we need to do it. And I think with some of the comments we heard tonight, we can expect more to happen. At least I hope so. Mr. Mayor, I wanted to tell everybody that I had a very entertaining weekend this weekend, thanks to the city of Hagerstown primarily. At the City Park Band Shell this weekend, on Saturday night, there was the Music by the Lake series featuring patent pending bluegrass band. I went there, and it was well attended. There were hundreds of people there, and it was a wonderful program. And on Sunday night, of course, was the municipal band, which I also attended. And frankly, they had one of the best concerts on Sunday night that I've seen in many, many years. It was a great weekend, and it was a great weekend musically. And that's because the city of Hagerstown made it so. Thank you.
Mr. Metzner.
No.
Mr. Alshire.
A couple of things. The first is we were downtown the other evening, and the University Park. I don't know who maintains the fountain, but the water is rather green in color. And also, I gave to the Mayor and Council last week, I presented a newspaper article in Frederick where they are actively abating and placing liens on properties that are in long-term nuisance condition. I know when we heard a couple of months ago I believe it's in Cumberland, where they are practicing a bit more aggressive approach to demolition of basically abandoned structures. If you recall, I guess it was about 2 years ago, when we purchased a property down here on Franklin Street. It was my preference for that particular property that we simply abate it rather than buy it. And I would continue, and I think some of the comments speak to that this evening, I continue to believe that what we need to do is abate these properties, demolish these properties, and place liens against the property owner. I know that there's a cost associated with that, but there is clearly a devaluation of market cost of the neighborhood that is the converse of that. And I think that abatement and lien is the way that our neighbors are going. They're simply addressing the post-economic housing bubble. I believe that that's the way to go. And I'll use the example when you come into downtown, right up here on Franklin Street, just past Roto-Rooter, I think it is, on your right. There's a house that's sitting there boarded up, that looks horrible. It's the first thing that I see every time I come into downtown. It's boarded up, and I believe that that there is now a good bit of graffiti painted on the stucco porch walls on the front of it that I think says RIP and something else. But it's a less than attractive place, and precisely one of those places that either needs abated or torn down and start over. Also, I read with some interest and was a bit aware of the alternative proposal for the hub school addition downtown. So clearly they have two proposals on the table now, and what I would hope that this mayor and council isn't drawn into is political fodder on the debate on which one of those is better. I think it's a good problem for us to have, two large projects. What I will say is the same thing I said during the initial proposal of the first one, is that clearly I think that there is space enough and need enough to where both of these could be accomplished, one for the expansion of the Board of Education's needs and one for the expansion of the university system's needs. I don't think it has to be a choice of one or the other. I think both will demand more space over time, and I think both of those projects merit that type of discussion and input from the city perspective, and that's the message that I would push, not a one or the other, or one only. And speaking of weeds, it seems to be a hot topic this evening. One of the comments I was going to make is on the overpass there, Virginia Avenue and Burhans Boulevard, Wilson Boulevard. I think the reality is, in some of these cases, we plant with very good intention. We like our medians and spaces to be very presentable, well kept. And I use the example of the Big Island that seems to be the discussion of emails on Guilford Avenue. That's a very simple planting. It's pretty much grass. At the overpasses on Virginia Avenue, I think at one time they just had like a tree in each one of them. And to me, I think in each of these instances, while the planting of all the flowers and shrubbery is well intentioned, we simply can't keep up with it. I think a single tree and some grass or some mulch is the better way to go if we can't keep up with that level of planting, and I think it would be just as or more aesthetically pleasing to the passersby.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on that one, please? Because I want to know how we were able to before and we're not able to now. And it has been a deterioration, because I have people that live out there on Nolan and who said, hey, Penny, come on, we'll go and do it. And again, I told you I was stopped. But the bottom line is, we did maintain it. Our planting was absolutely gorgeous. What happened? What happened? Okay? That's the question. What happened? I don't know that we're that short of staff. If we are, as the service would say, it's the grunt people that we don't have. Then are we looking at too much up above? Because certainly it was done before. And that, I think, is what has angered me, that we're not getting to where we need to get to, and we just continue to be pushed over.
Well, I can assure
it's-
you I'll be following up with Valerie and
I will, but I
taking all
just,
of
you
this.
know, I mean, I just continue to beat my head up against that brick wall, so hopefully now somebody is actually listening.
Well, thanks. I want to recognize the Korean vets who put the event on last night. I couldn't attend. I was at the MML dinner in Williamsport, which is a very nice event. And also wanted to thank the folks at Acela, which you may not know is the big nondescript white warehouse building on Franklin, between Franklin and Church Streets and Walnut Street. Fascinating to see behind those walls and to see their operations and for the work that they do. They're a growing company and look forward to them continuing to grow here in Hagerstown. With that, I have no other comments, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes from June 9th, June 2nd, June 9th, June 16th, and June 23rd.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I hereby move for the approval of minutes as presented for the mayor and council meetings held on June 2nd, 2015, June 9th, 2015, June 16th, 2015, and June 23rd, 2015.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. The next item is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved. Unfinished business, the approval of an ordinance for the acceptance of land from the State Highway Administration at 1481 Salem Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the approval of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of .59 acres of land from the State Highway Administration to the City of Hagerstown. The ordinance authorizes the mayor and staff to execute the road transfer agreement with SHA and further authorizes the transfer of the portion of the land adjacent to the street to the neighboring property owner as it is not needed for a public purpose.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? I just want to recognize staff for working toward this resolution. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Ordinance is approved. Under new business, item A, the introduction of an ordinance repealing Chapter 183 nuisance unattended donation containers.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council introduce an ordinance to repeal Chapter 183 nuisance unattended donation containers of the Code of the City of Hagerstown. This chapter will be replaced with Chapter 89 donation bins, which will regulate the location of bins in the city rather than ban the bins as recommended by the city attorney.
Second.
Motion made by...
Mayor, if I could make a comment, please.
Please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I intend to vote for this, but I have to say that I am going to vote with it, or for it, with a very pained heart. Some judge somewhere said that we have to do this, and that we have to do this because of free speech rights. Now, the best example, apparently, of free speech rights that I can find is a picture that I'm holding, and it was in the newspaper, I believe on Sunday, but I would like to hold this up so that the TV cameras can home in on it and take a look at free speech rights in Hagerstown, Maryland. This ruling that was made with regard to free speech rights, rather than community cleanliness, is an absolutely ridiculous ruling, but it's forcing us to do what we're doing with this particular piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for exercising your freedom of speech, council member. Any other discussion on the motion? Motion made by Ms. Nye, seconded by Mr. Metzner. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. Ordinance is introduced. Item B is the introduction of an ordinance adding Chapter 89 donation bins.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that the mayor and city council introduce an ordinance to add Chapter 89 donation bins to the code of the city of Hagerstown as recommended by the city attorney. This chapter will replace Chapter 183 nuisance unattended donation containers, which ban the bins in the city. Chapter 89 sets up the conditions upon which unattended donation bins may be located within the city and provides clear measures to address nuisance conditions if they arise.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Nye, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the ordinance is introduced. Item C is the introduction of an ordinance for a transfer of land at Park Circle.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the introduction of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of 0.04 acres of land from the city of Hagerstown to Buyers Commercial Properties, LLC. The land is no longer needed for public purpose, and the Park Circle Animal Hospital will use the property to expand their parking.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Nye, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. The ordinance is introduced. Item D, the approval of a contract for stormwater retrofit facilities.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move to award contract 15-SW-23 for the construction of 2 stormwater retrofit facilities. One will be located adjacent to the barn at the wastewater treatment plant and one on the edge of Hager Park, to Snyder Environmental Services, Inc. of Kearneysville, West Virginia, in the amount of $504,051.50. Funding for this project shall be $500,000 from the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bay Trust Fund and $100,000 from prior city bond proceeds.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire and seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion?
Just, I guess our 100,000 is to cover any difference, right?
Right. Jim contacted the grant agency, and we can spend all our money before we have to spend any of our money. So at this point, we're only expecting to spend 5,000 of that.
So it's really like an up to 100,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. Contract is awarded. Item E is the approval of a contract for art consulting services for the A&E Trail.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of a contract with Cochran Studios for $37,960 to engage the public on desired art, develop master plan of art along the trail, manage a call for artists, oversee fabrication and installation of the initial art, and assist staff in grant writing to fund future phases of art. In the event the land acquisitions for the trail are not completed to the satisfaction of the city, this contract can be terminated.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion?
Yeah, I know Marty and I brought up this issue last week. I'm just curious how the addition of this language to the motion at the end ties into a time frame. In other words, the way I read this motion, you could spend the $37,000 and terminate the contract at, $960 left.
Well, we're anticipating that the land acquisition process will be wrapped up in the next couple of months.
Do we have a better feeling now than we had a week ago?
Yes.
I do in one property owner sense. For the housing authority.
All right, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do we have a better feeling this week than we did last week as it applies to the Harold Mill property?
I do, because I have a meeting scheduled with Todd Schurz in early September, which is more movement than we've gotten in the last couple of months.
So a month and a half from now, we may get a response.
I assume that that would be the timeline we're looking at. But my understanding is this contract will not move forward until such time as those details are finalized.
What details?
Of the land acquisition.
Okay, but that isn't what this motion says.
We could do it that way. It was our anticipation to get started so that we could start working through the process so that the art would be ready next summer when the trail is finished. If we delay getting that process started, then the art would come later after the trail is finished.
Yeah, I understand the timing issue. I don't
Right.
find that it's that complex of a decision for the Herald Mail to render a response to us in a timely manner on.
Duly noted. My comment on this particular item, to address some of the concerns Janet and others have made about this, is that I'd like to keep folks focused on the fact that this is not a trail in and of itself. This is not an end in and of itself, that this is really investing in infrastructure, particularly focused on arts and entertainment, that does lead to somewhere. Quite frankly, it's what I like to call an art link, because we'll be connecting the Arts and Entertainment District in the downtown with our unofficial, undesignated Arts and Entertainment District at City Park in the most direct way, and really is the beginning of hopefully the transformation of the whole neighborhood bordered by the downtown Potomac Street and Prospect Street. That is the goal that is expressed in the Urban Partners Community City Center plan, and this is just the beginning of making that goal achievable. This is the investment in the infrastructure in order to move that catalyst project forward. So that's the take that I have on what we're doing here, really beginning with the art, because there is a much more complicated process in terms of getting the public's input and having the call for artists and moving that process forward. So what I hear staff saying is that I think our risk is minimal in that sense. I think action by the council tonight moving this forward demonstrates the seriousness with which this body is moving forward on this planned project.
It does. Here's my frustration. When we came into office, the stadium project was a hotly contested issue. Information that the public was never privy to included appraisals and responses from property owners as it applied to those negotiated appraised figures for sale, one of which was the Herald Mail. And if I recall from that information, as much as the Herald Mail publicly lambasted this issue, the stadium issue, was clearly a party in that process, and their response to that negotiation before it faltered was that the land didn't provide for adequate turnaround. That was one of the responses. And the other is that the price wasn't acceptable. And on one hand, you have an entity saying, hey, city, you need to do something, you need to invest, you need to spend, you need to make this project happen. And the other hand saying, what you proposed isn't acceptable to us. And I don't want this project, as it applies to this specific property owner, to once again say, hey, city, you need to do something, you need to invest, you need to make this project happen. And on the other hand, say, well, the terms aren't acceptable to us, so we're not going to be partners in the process until they are. And I don't know how you correct that, but certainly getting a response from them months after we decide to spend thousands of dollars to move forward and invest, massive amounts of good staff time in it, to me is a little frustrating. So, and that's clearly not a reflection on the efforts that staff has taken on either one of those projects, but rather this property owner's, position on it.
One thing I could offer is that, of the items that we've listed in the motion that the Cochran Studio would do for us, probably one of the more expensive things is managing the call for artists and overseeing the fabrication. Obviously, we wouldn't move that forward until we absolutely know we have a project and the land's been secured. So, I could make that commitment right here that we wouldn't spend that money.
Yeah, I'm prepared to vote for the motion.
Okay.
I'm doing so with some frustration.
I appreciate that.
Any other discussion? On the motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-1. Next item, item F, approval of a resolution, Neighborhood Business Works Program Resolution for the DHCD loan to RAW LLC.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move the mayor and city council adopt a resolution indicating support of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development's Neighborhood Business Works Program to finance a loan in the amount of $80,000 to RAW LLC. This loan will allow RAW LLC to purchase property located at 134 West Washington Street, Hagerstown, where they will operate a law firm and create 3 jobs in the downtown.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, seconded by Mr. Munson. Did I hear? Any discussion?
It should be clearly pointed out to the public that this is pass-through funding from the state and not direct city funding.
Correct. And that this resolution is required by the state in order to receive the money.
Right.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. The resolution is approved. Item G, the approval of resolution, Neighborhood Business Works Program Resolution for DHCD loan to Harbin and Gibson LLC.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move that the mayor and city council adopt a resolution indicating support of the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development's Neighborhood Business Works Program to finance a loan in the amount of $62,000 to Harbin and Gibson LLC. This single loan will allow Harbin and Gibson LLC to pay off previous loans for the renovation and purchase of property located at 111 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, where they operate a law firm and retain 3 jobs in the downtown.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, second by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries and the resolution is approved. Next item, item H, is the approval of city funding support for the Washington County Library Public Art.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the mayor and council approval of $5,000 in city funding support for the Washington County Washington County Library Public Art as requested. This funding will be provided as the city's continued support of public art within our community and A&E district. The source of the city's funding will be from the approved fiscal year 16 capital improvement budget in project C0868 Public Art.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to make a couple of comments. First, I would like to thank Councilman Brubaker, who is not here, for coming up with the ability to take money that we have in our budget to do this, because that's a very responsible thing. And in addition to that, I would like to make this point. I had a chance this week to talk to Mary Bicon, who of course runs the library. And I asked her what the dedicatory language would be in terms of a plaque which would reflect this contribution. And she sent me something in the email, which I'm sorry, I just haven't had time to get it around. But I would like to read it because it's an incredibly nice piece of work. There will be a dedicatory plaque done by Toby Mendez, the sculptor of the piece of work at the library. Indeed, he's going to do that plaque tomorrow. And it's going to show the name of the art piece, which is Our Journey Transports Us Through Time, dedicated April 30th, 2015. And this is what it's going to say, and I think this is especially important to the city of Hagerstown, and it's extraordinarily heartfelt, I believe. Quote, "This sculpture is very significant to me. It depicts the importance of transportation to the history of my home county. It is made all the more special because it is installed outside my library in Hagerstown, the place where I dreamed and was inspired to pursue a career in the arts. end quote, signed by Antonio Tobias Toby Mendez, sculptor. And then it lists the people who have contributed, and it will be very nice to see Hagerstown added to this list, because this is going to be a very important piece of history, I believe. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion? On the motion made by Mr. Munson, seconded by Mr. Metzner. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Penny, were you yes?
Yes, I was a yes.
Okay,
I
thank
go
you.
in the back way.
Well, I just wanted to make it clear for the
I
record.
go to the back of the library.
The motion carries 3-1. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item I, approval of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security grant. Oh, and I should state for the record, Mr. Brubaker, had he been here, said he would have supported that motion as well. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record on his behalf. On the current motion.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move to the mayor and council to approve the acceptance and terms and conditions of the grant awarded by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Purchase 65 sets of personal protective equipment, also known as turnout gear. The award amount is $169,000. The federal share is $153,637. The city share is $15,363. The city's funding portion will be from the approved fiscal year 16 general fund.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner, seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries 4-0. Last but not least, the approval of liability and property insurance for fiscal year 2016.
Mr. Mayor, I move the mayor and city council approve the FY16 renewal of coverage with Legit for liability and property insurance in the amount of $414,441.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Alshire, second by Mr. Metzner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the contract is approved. We shall be adjourned. I want to thank Senator Benson for coming. I look forward to speaking with her after the meeting.